Alrighty, well, happy Tuesday, 7th graders. This is Mrs. Oliver bringing you today's lesson of percent of a number. Okay, so yesterday we did converting. Okay, so that's where we had to compute fractions and decimals. We know how to make proportions, and that is how we are setting these up today. Okay, so we have some notes that are going to go in after yesterday's. Remember, we're in our 5th unit, but that is chapter 2 of volume 1 textbook. Okay, we don't have too many examples that we're going to go over today. We're going to do 5 from the notes and then some in our guided practice page. Okay, so essential question, what are we trying to get out of this whole thing? What does a percent represent and how can it be expressed or even used? Okay, so we are today focusing on finding the part of a whole if we're given the percent. Remember yesterday at the beginning of our notes, we talked about a percent is always out of 100. So we are always putting our percent on top of 100, just like we did yesterday when we were turning a percent into a fraction. Okay, but we're going to set it equal as a proportion to a part of a whole number given to us. Okay, and it'll make more sense once we start setting up some of these problems. One thing that we can do that is really helpful is to always estimate first. See if you notice, is this something that should be more than the number given to me? Less, a lot of it, a little bit? Is there going to be more or less than half? Okay, so we're going to do our first 3 problems. We're going to use this model up here to do all of our other things. Get rid of that. Okay, so let me get my pen going here. All right, so remember we are always doing our percent. So my percent is 70. So that is going to go on top of the 100. That's pretty much how all of these are going to start. A percent over 100. We are always today looking for the part, which is the numerator of the other. You can use P for part, N for number. You can use any variable you like. And then the number that they give us, this is our given today, only today, right? This is my whole. So my 30 goes below. And I'm going to estimate. I'm going to think this through. If I'm looking for 70%, 70% is more than half. So I want to make sure my number that I get for my part is more than half of 30, which is 15. So our number should definitely be higher than 15. Then this is where knowing how to do your cross products and making a one-step equation come into play. All right, so I have my 100p equals, and I have to take 70 times 30. All right, so I have 100p equals 2100. That's a one-step equation. We know the opposite of multiplying by 100 is dividing by 100. And then remember, you can cancel those zeros. So I know that p equals 21. Okay, if we need to, we'll round to the nearest tenth today. All right, so we're saying 70% of 30 is 21. Okay, now we're going to set up our next one. Once again, take your percent, put it over 100. Then make your other fraction. Some number out of 80 is 93% of that number. All right, so 93%. That means it should be pretty close to 80 when I find my number here. Do your cross products. 100n equals, and then we're going to have to take 93 times 80. Okay. Do our multiplication. And the product of those two numbers is 7,440. Then, of course, we need to divide by 100, which means I'm just basically moving my decimal over twice. Okay, so 74 and 4/10. I don't need to put the 0, plus we're rounding to our nearest tenth. And then I'm done. That one's over. All right, let's go to number 3. This one's going to have a decimal, but that's fine. We're going to make it work. So 21 and 3/10% of 105. Okay, take your cross products. I have my 100n equals whatever 21 3/10 times 105 is. Lucky for you, I already did the multiplication for you. Okay, so once we multiply, it is 2,236.5. Okay, when we divide by our hundreds, that means I'm just taking my decimal, I'm going to move it over twice. Remember, we're rounding to our nearest tenth, which is my 3. So I have to look after it, and my n is 22 and 4/10. I have to round it up because that's 6 after the 3, 5 or higher, raise your score, 4 or less, let rest. And that is how we use our proportions to find our part of a whole number given. Now, of course, we have to have word problems. We actually do come across percents quite a lot in life. Okay? As an adult, I'm always trying to find percents of certain situations, and we'll talk more about those on our guided practice. So Mr. Redding sells vehicles to 20% of the people that come into the sale lot. If 65 people came to the lot last month, how many vehicles did he sell? So that's what we're looking for, which is still my part. So how many vehicles did he sell? Well, my percent is always going to be this number with 100 under it. The only other number they gave me is my 65 people. So 65 people come walking onto the car lot last month. 20% of them actually bought a car from him. Okay, and so if he's trying to figure out how much money he's going to make from his commissions, if he makes a certain amount of commission per car, he needs to know how much he's going to be making. So then we take our cross products. 100V equals my 20 times 65. Okay, so then 20 times 65 is 1,300. Then divide by your 100, which means I'm just going to move my decimal over twice. So out of 65 people, 13, that doesn't seem like a lot, are actually the amount of people that buy a car from him. So Mr. Redding sold 13 vehicles last month. And period. Now, there is a little bit of a different way that you could do this. We do have where you can make an equation. Remember yesterday when we talked about turning a percent into a decimal? Okay, that means I have to take this and turn it into 0.2. You take your 65 times 0.2, that will tell me how many vehicles he sold. You will still get the 13. That is one short equation type way that you could do this, but proportions is an easy way as well to do it. And it helps you practice with knowing how to do proportions, and that's an important standard for 7th grade. All right, let's talk about our next one. Purple. A baseball pitcher pitched 35 ball games. Okay. He won 80% of the games pitched. How many games did he win? Okay, so number is a percent over 100 and your part over the whole. So I have to put my 80 over my 100. I don't know how many he won. That's what we're trying to find. That's the part. And then over 35. So I have 100W equals whatever 80 times 35 is, which is 2,800. So 100W equals 2,800. Divide by your 100, which makes my zeros cancel. So W equals 28. And remember, if it's a word problem, you should answer it in a sentence form. The pitcher won 28 games. And you have to watch for what they're asking. Sometimes they might try to trick you. They might tell you how many he won, but they want you to find out how many he lost. Okay, and if that was the case, instead of using 80%, we would use 20%. So that's a good thing to make sure that you are looking for what they gave you, and is that actually what they're asking you to find. All right, in your textbook, we have a guided practice on page 106. Go ahead and pause this section of the video and try to complete the problems on the guided practice. So once you have completed those, come back and we'll go over the answers. All right, so hopefully you pause and now you have completed. So let's check your answers. For number 1, I got n equals 4. Okay, the number 8% of 50 is 4, which makes sense because 10% of 50 is 5, so it has to be less than 5. 95% of 40 should be a number really close to 40, so I got 38 as my answer. 110% of 70, you should get a number bigger than 70, which I did. I got 77. All right, Mackenzie wants to buy a backpack that costs $50. If the tax rate is 6.5%, how much tax will she pay? Okay, there was 2 ways that you could have gotten this. Well, all of these have basically 2 ways. Using the proportion way, I got $3.25. Or I took it and did the equation part, turned my percent into a decimal, and multiplied it by the number given. And I still got my $3.25. Okay. All right. When give an example of a real world situation in which you would find a percent of a number. So times that we are always having to find a percent of a number: taxes, tips, discounts. Okay, those are all everyday life situations that you are going to have to deal with percents. Okay, if you go to the clearance rack, if it's 30% off, how much are you actually saving? All right, let's go back up to the homework. I'm going to help start some of this. You're doing numbers 1 through 12. That means you are going to have to go to the back side to do a couple. All of these, remember, is a percent over 100 equals your part over a whole. So I went ahead and started putting all of my fraction numbers exactly how they should be. And then I'm going to come in and fill in the information. I know I'm always looking for my part. So what is the information they gave me? My percent always goes over 100. Then the other number goes on is my whole. 45, 432, 23, and 640. Okay, so now those are set up. And I wrote big just so that I know that you guys can see it off of your screens. So then now, just do your cross products. Okay, take your 65 times your 186, and that's equal to my 100p. Okay, so 65 times my 186 is a huge number. It is 12,090. Then divide by your 100, which means I'm going to move my decimal over. And it says to round to the nearest tenth. So 120.9 is my answer. All right, 100p equals 45 times my 432. I get 19,440. Divide by your 100. Means I move my decimal over twice. So 194.4. All right, 100p equals, take your 23 times 640. I get 14,720. Divide by your 100, which means I move my decimal over twice. I get 147.2. Okay, so that's the start of it. Go, you got 9 more problems to go. Have a good day.